CFA fam, what is up? What is happening? We are back. We decided to refresh our rankings. We haven't done this in probably a little over a month, maybe a little longer than that. But with the season rapidly approaching, like a couple weeks away, drafting season heating up, we figured this was the best time to refresh our rankings and kind of dive back into them. So, without further ado, our RB1 rankings are as follows. I have Christian McCaffrey, Bijan, Saquon, Austin Eckler, Tony Pollard, Nick Chubb, Derrick Henry, Joe Mixon, Ramondre Stevenson, Jonathan Taylor, Travis Etienne, Najee Harris, and then Cody. Somewhat similar. You have Christian McCaffrey, Eckler, Barkley, Bijan, Pollard, and then Ramondre, Nick Chubb, Najee Harris, Joe Mixon, Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs, and Jonathan Taylor. Cody, hit me with the good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the things that stand out here and might stand out to some people is the Josh Jacobs and Jonathan Taylor rankings. I just have no idea what to do with them. Obviously, if they come back, they're going to move up in the rankings. That's why I kind of kept them as RB1s for right now, just with without really knowing fully what's going on. Obviously, Taylor is quote unquote back, but he's still rehabbing, wants to be traded, all that. Josh Jacobs is nowhere to be seen just yet. So have to wait and see what happens with them. But the guy that I just want to touch on real quickly is Joe Mixon. He was a guy who, anyone who's doing underdog drafts, early in the offseason, like March, April, anything like that, he was going absurdly late. Obviously, he had some of the legal troubles. There was, some of the buzz going around on Twitter was that he could be a cap casualty, which I never understood because they didn't need to make any room for the salary cap. But I digress. I'm going to end up being higher on Mixon than consensus, Kev. I'm glad to see that you have him where you have him. But we're talking about a guy who last year was 7th in opportunity share, 7th in targets, 6th in red zone touches, and then just saw his most viable competition leave this offseason in Samaje Perine. I think he also set career highs in receiving usage as well in terms of targets, receptions, and yards. If you had Mixon last year, you 100% remember the absolute pain and frustration of seeing him coming off the field on third down situations in a 2-minute drill because of Perine. He's no longer there. I know one of the knocks that he has against him from last year was about his efficiency. It wasn't that great. I think he was 35th in yards per touch, but I really don't care that much about it. If he's going to be basically top 8 in every volume stat, I can't not rank Mixon as an RB1. Especially whenever you're talking about some of the other running backs that are in that conversation, like back end RB1, high end RB2. You have questions about workload that come in very quickly with a lot of these guys. You don't have that with Joe Mixon. Give me the running back who is in one of the best offenses in the league. Efficiency be damned.
Still being undervalued. Like, he's still going in like the late 3rd round or middle 3rd round right now in terms of ADP. And the volume is 100% going to be there. He was massively involved in the passing game last year. So I really do like Joe Mixon. For me, like, I think that, like, when I was doing these rankings, at least for the RB1s, like, side of it, like, I really want to move Tony Pollard higher, but, like, I feel like it's too hot to move him higher. I know, like, there's people in the industry, like D-Bro over at Fantasy Pros. He has Tony Pollard ranked the RB1. And as much as I would love to do that, I just can't get him ahead of these guys. But Tony Pollard, I think, is the easiest 2nd round pick there is this year. Like, don't even overthink it. I don't, like I've said, if you have the 201 or the 212, if Tony Pollard's sitting on the board, I'm taking him. He is such an incredible smash at his price, right? In the 2nd round. Like, if you would have said this last year that, hey, Ezekiel Elliott's going to be gone, he's going to get the entire offense to himself because there's nobody else there. I do not care about Rico Dowdle or Deuce fucking Vaughn or Malik Davis and these other guys that they have there. They're clearly not going to bring anybody else in. He's going to get the entire backfield to himself. He's in an elite offense, a top 10 offense in the league, still running behind one of the best offensive lines. And so, like, everything is there for him. He's an elite pass catcher. Like, the sky is the limit. Like he legitimately has the RB1 upside, not just RB1, but the RB1. Like, that is not hot. He is Austin Eckler before Austin Eckler, right? And this is the exact same situation that Austin Eckler found himself in. We couldn't wait until Melvin Gordon got the hell out of there so Austin Eckler could take over. And this is exactly where we're at. But we had people, and if you remember, Cody, I know you remember this because you said it a lot that year about the touchdowns. Like, he's not going to be able to score touchdowns. He's not going to get goal line work and everything else. And what happened with Austin Eckler? He scored 38 touchdowns the last 2 seasons. And he has been the man. And that's exactly where Tony Pollard is right now. And so draft Tony Pollard with confidence. The other guy I really want to hit on we haven't talked about him all offseason. He's kind of been a guy that we have constantly said the fall is coming, the fall is coming, and he has just shoved it down our throat. But that is Derrick Henry. Last season, he was second in opportunity share. He was fifth in weighted opportunities. He was actually 18th in target share last season with a 10% target share in that offense, which he saw the most targets that he ever has in his entire career. The most he never had more than 20. And last season he saw 41, 1,500 rushing yards, almost 400 receiving yards. But he was also first in yards per route run and yards per reception last season, 24th in yards created per touch, but 38th in breakaway run rate. Now, he did see a pretty significant drop in carries where he saw 27.4 carries per game in 2021, which is insane, but he still had 21.8 carries per game last season. I still think he's a very risky pick. I'm going to put that out there. And I know he's going in like the second round. I will probably never get him because I would rather have Nick Chubb. I'd rather have Tony Pollard, and I'd rather have Amon-Ra St. Brown in the second round. Like, I just don't see myself ever drafting him because there's so much risk there. Yes, the ceiling is there, right? He could finish as a top 5 running back once again at his age, almost 30 season. He will turn 30, I believe, in January. He's had an incredible amount of touches in his career, but he has been a unicorn. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you why he's going to fail and he's going to collapse, he's going to get injured. Like, all those things are certainly a range of possibility for him, but it's not something I'm going to sit here and just pound the table for because he has continued to prove us wrong. He was 4th in fantasy points per game last year, but he was 6th in expected fantasy points per game. This offensive line is not going to be very good. And this defense, I have serious question marks about as well. But still, Derrick Henry has proven to be that dude, and he's just built different because he's a dog. He's a dog. And so I like Derrick Henry. I don't mind if you people want to take him, but I think there was some positiveness with him in terms of the pass catching involvement, the way he was utilized a little bit more as a pass catcher. That's something that's always kind of shied me away from him. It gives you a little bit more of outs, a little bit more higher of a floor with him because of it. And we know he's going to get the goal line work. They drafted Tyjae Spears there, but that's kind of it, right? There's still nobody else there. So he's still probably going to see 85% of the opportunities in this backfield. So let's go ahead and move over to our RB2s. I have Alexander Mattison, Dameon Pierce, Jahmyr Gibbs, Javonte Williams, J.K. Dobbins, Breece Hall, Cam Akers, Aaron Jones, Kenneth Walker, Isaiah Pacheco, Miles Sanders, Rashad White. And Cody, you have Miles Sanders, Alexander Mattison, Isaiah Pacheco, Javonte, Breece Hall, Travis Etienne, Jahmyr Gibbs, Cam Akers, Aaron Jones, Kenneth Walker, J.K. Dobbins, and Dameon Pierce. Cody, what do you got?
Yeah, so just looking at this, I want to get Gibbs a little bit higher. He's probably someone who there's going to be somebody who ends up taking Gibbs before he gets to me, right? Like there's a bunch of hype around him. I'm just a little bit hesitant because I think this could be a bigger split. Like, people are acting as if like David Montgomery isn't there. We're talking about Jahmyr Gibbs, and like I've seen the comparisons of like this could be the same thing of what happened with the Saints when it was Alvin Kamara in his rookie year and Mark Ingram. Like, we could be looking at 2 top 7 running backs, and that is just such an outlier. Like, that just really doesn't happen. I mean, what other tandems can you think of that were both top 8 fantasy producers? I know we were throwing around some old names on the live. I mean, maybe was there a year that Jonathan Stewart and D'Angelo Williams did it? I'm trying to think of some running backs on the same team that were both RB1s. Like, it just doesn't happen. But the guy that I wanted to talk about here is Alexander Mattison. I think he's someone who is being undervalued. Even with Dalvin Cook, it was like kind of being baked in a little bit because we kept hearing he was going to be released, and then he just wasn't for a while, and it finally happened. And his ADP really hasn't changed all that much. I know it's a small sample size, but in the 6 games that Mattison has played without Dalvin Cook since Mattison came into the league, he has averaged 20.4 PPR points per game. He's averaging 25 touches in those contests. I have him as high as I did, like I was talking about with Joe Mixon. After some of these names, we start to look at a bunch of question marks surrounding either the offense or the workload or both, frankly. The only hesitation I really have with Mattison is the Vikings have one of the more difficult schedules this year, and they ranked 25th in adjusted line yards last year. They really didn't do anything to improve that offensive line. So Alexander Mattison is a guy that I'd really like. Obviously, I am way higher on Isaiah Pacheco than even you are, Kev, being the Chiefs homer. Again, this just comes down to, is he going to get all the work? No. But you look at the guys down this list, you say the same things about them, maybe outside of like a Dameon Pierce, who we're expecting to get the majority of the work in that offense. But what this comes down to is he's in the best offense in the league, like plain and simple. So I'm moving him up there just a little bit higher. But I've seen on like consensus rankings that he's like a mid RB3, which I just don't understand at all. I mean, I guess people are still thinking about the incredible run that Jerick McKinnon went on, but we also have to remember McKinnon didn't re-sign with the Chiefs until a little bit later in the process. It wasn't like he was a priority for that team. So really like the situation that Pacheco's in, and just two guys I just like didn't really know what to do with, and that was Travis Etienne and Kenneth Walker. I'm sure we're going to get some heat in the comments about the ETN ranking, especially, but I'm just nervous about the inclusion of Tank Bigsby and possibly even JaMycal Hasty if we're to read into the first preseason game where we saw some of the usage shake out there. But I think this is a team that wants to keep ETN fresh. We kind of saw what happened to him once they did turn him into that true workhorse back when he was getting 20 plus touches per game. Kind of start to break down a little bit. We have to remember, it's not like he's like a 225-pound back either. So I think they want to keep him fresh. I don't think it's going to be like a 50-50 split where I could see that with Walker and Charbonnet. Like we thought Kenneth Walker was going to be completely safe, and then Seahawks go out and just do Pete Carroll things and take Charbonnet with similar draft capital in the second round. And Charbonnet just like feels like the type of back that Pete Carroll is going to fall in love with. I'm sure everyone's seen the clips of Charbonnet just absolutely running over two defenders in their first preseason game. This is a situation where I could see this end up being like a true like 50-50 split, or at least to a point where Charbonnet is getting some more of the pass catching work. That's something he did very well in college. Kenneth Walker did not, and he's the bigger back as well. So what happens if he's getting some of the third down work and the goal line work, and then Walker ends up kind of being like a between the 20s type of back? So I'm more worried about Walker than I am ETN, but still two guys where I just like wasn't entirely sure where to put them.
Yeah, they're tough. And I feel like this kind of range, there's a lot of like question marks in all of these guys, right? And so
sure.
I think that this is something like I felt like I could kind of shuffle these guys around over and over again. And I don't know if I'd ever truly like feel like 100% confident in it, because I think there's so many different range of outcomes for a lot of these dudes. But I will say that I love Dameon Pierce this year. I still think he should be going higher than what he is. I think he is going to get the majority of this backfield to himself. He was a player last year that was ultra efficient last season, and I think I really like what they've done with this offensive line. They really spent draft capital this season, really trying to improve that, adding Shaq Mason. They drafted Juice Scruggs to play center. Like this offensive line, they have two of the best tackles in the league as well, with Laramie Tunsil, Titus Howard. And so I just think there's a lot to like here with Dameon Pierce. I'm not worried about Devin Singletary whatsoever. I think Dameon Pierce still handles the majority of the touches in this backfield. He's a better pass catcher. His last season, his receiving grade and his yards per out run would have beaten Devin Singletary in any year of his career last season. And so Dameon Pierce is a better pass catcher. He's a better running back than Devin Singletary. Yes, Devin Singletary will get some work, but it's not enough to deter me from taking Dameon Pierce. Like I think Dameon Pierce has top 10 upside this year. Like it's not even hot. Like it just feels like I just think that's what he's going to be. And so I love Dameon Pierce this year. The other guy is Javonte Williams. Me and you are both way ahead of consensus. Consensus still has Javonte Williams outside of the top 24, which is just stupid. We're going to look back on this and people are going to really regret this. This is not a Breece Hall situation. This is not a J.K. Dobbins situation from last season. The dude is going to play in preseason games this weekend. He is like, that is so wild to me that he's actually going to play. They're not going to get a ton of work, but they're saying he's probably going to get a drive or something like that. But that is such positive news for somebody. Like, we just don't typically see these guys play in preseason games when they're coming off this injury. This dude was participated in OTAs. Like that's how ahead of schedule he was. He has been cleared for he's been cleared for contact the majority of training camp, and now he's playing in preseason. He's 100% ready for week 1. And so I love Javonte Williams, and I want like you should have no problem getting. And his ADP is not rising; he's still sitting there in the 7th, 8th round of drafts. Like if he was healthy, he would be going in the 2nd or 3rd round. If he was completely healthy, probably the 2nd round. You are getting such an edge on him with where you can take him. And you can take him as your RB3 or RB4 by that point. I guarantee you, he is going to be somebody that's going to win people leagues this year over the second half of the season. Like, I think from weeks 4 on in the league, like, I think that's the kind of ceiling he has. Over the second half of the season, he can be a top 10 running back in the league as well. I think this is a guy, and Sean Payton's offense has proven. Sean Payton has a proven track record when it comes to running backs, really be able to produce guys. I mean, you can go way back to like Reggie Bush and Pierre Thomas, and it's not even just Alvin Kamara. It's Mark Ingram. Like, his running backs thrive in his scheme. And so I love Javonte Williams. You're getting the discount on him. So I'm taking that all day. So that being said, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button for future content. And we will see you on the next one. Bye.